Dear guests, dear audience of Cinema Backstage online conference, it's a pleasure to welcome you and probably welcome some of you back to the third and the final panel of the conference that is happening online. I'm here for a short while today, as opposed to the previous longer talks that I had to lead, because this panel is going to be moderated by a real professional, Alessia Sognalioni, who is the Managing Director of European Women's Audiovisual Network, and this panel is happening in cooperation with the network. Why I'm here? Because I would like to say a couple of words on behalf of the team of Odessa Film Festival. It is to welcome you all great female directors, Nana, Marysia, Antoneta, from different countries, from different time zones, to be here with us to share your experiences. Dear Carolyn, representing Women in Film and Television in Canada, and dear Andreas from European Film Promotion, who are here to share their knowledge, to reflect on the schemes and support mechanisms that are very vital in the agenda of the equality and gender equality as such. Some of you may remember that Cinema Backstage was incepted 2 years ago. It's the third edition. The very first edition was a full-day conference about the gender equality agenda, and the title was Whether It Is a Myth or Reality. We found it very interesting back in a time to discuss with regional representatives what does it really mean, how it should be worked on, and whether those female directors, Nana, Antoneta, and Marysia, representing numerous talent in the region, I must say, who in my view are rewriting the history a little bit in one way or another, are challenging the given stereotypes and are elevating the role of women to a completely different level. This is why we have decided to come back to the topic in the year of 2020, which is a very important year for the equality agenda, 50-50 by 2020, to make it short, and which was struck by the outbreak of the pandemic. And sometimes there's been a worry whether this agenda will not be overlooked, provided the wider health issues that we all had to face as an invisible enemy. This is why one of the online panels today is dedicated to the specific topic of gender stereotyping in storytelling, and it will be Alessia who leads this conversation with all of you here on the screen. Just for the technical mention, I will now disappear, not to bore the audiences of Odessa Film Festival, as I've been there for a whole day in different functions. I leave you all in capable hands of Alessia, and you have up to 1 hour and 30 minutes to exchange and discuss among yourselves, because there will be no direct questions posed from the audience for this specific panel. So have a good exchange. I'm leaving and I will be watching you on screen. And Andreas has also emerged, I see. So Alessia, the floor is all yours.
And thank you, everybody. I'm really honored to be here today. I know some of you directly or indirectly, and I'm also happy that we are having a conversation on the content side of gender equality. As Tamara has recalled, we are in 2020, and this was symbolically the year of achieving 50-50. We are still not there, probably, but I think that the work in progress is so far good. And as an EWA director, I'm particularly attached to what we can achieve not only behind the camera, but also in the content of what is directed and produced. And I'm particularly happy to be here today with you because we have on the one side three directors who in their work have really gone deeply into somehow changing the narrative about female characters and in all their films, and we will go back to that. We have also Andreas Strack from EFP, who will give us his own point of view, what is happening on the European scene as regards stereotypes and narratives in the European landscape. He is also an expert on gender equality. And then Carolyn, who is with us, bringing the experience of Canada, who is not only working for OIFF, but is also a producer, if I'm right. And I will be also very glad to hear what is happening in Canada, because we know that Canada is very much ahead on achieving the 50-50 agenda. As a short introduction to the subject, I would like to say that we know now from several studies, I can refer to Gina Davis Institute, but also to smaller studies done in Europe, for instance, by Eurimage, that whenever a film is written and directed by a woman, there are more chances that on screen we will have a female lead who is in general much less stereotyped than what we can see when it is a man who has written the story. But also we know that when women write films, the stories that they create are more universal, meaning that even the male characters are more diversified. So I'm not going into the numbers, it's not the time to do that. But I would like to start with our three directors, and I would like to know a little bit more about how you have built your characters. Because in all your films, we see that your characters, your female lead characters, are behaving against the codes of their societies. We are speaking about, if you can allow me to define it, post-Soviet societies. And the societies that you depict are very, very traditional. The power of the families and of the local context is very strong, and the characters are really struggling to affirm themselves. So how did you build your characters, and what was your inspiration? And I would like to start like kind of tour de table, and maybe I will start with Antoneta, trying to use the alphabetical order.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on this. It was really exciting. So I come from Kosovo, and I started doing documentary films early when I was 20. And even then because for me it was really immediate. You know, my mother had arranged marriage, and I had to, from early on, fight for anything I wanted to do, you know. So for me, it wasn't a thing. And with documentary films, I was challenging the gender stereotypes with image of women in media, like with roles in marriage. And once I started doing fiction, Zona is my first feature, actually. With documentary, in some way, it's easier because you're challenging the gender stereotypes, but you're dealing with real characters and real stories. Mm-hmm. And in Zona, for me, but I just wanted to mention something to me as I was growing up that was really interesting, was this idea also of how women and were like defending sort of the patriarchal society and values, you know, and how there is a complex, of course, because we're humans, you know. Like my grandmother, for example, was very conservative, and yet she was kind of like, she had the final say in the family. And at some point she was upholding these values. And to me, that was always interesting in ways which, like when we had the agency, when we let go of our power and the power dynamics. I just want to mention it's really early for me. It's 7 a.m. I'm still kind of waking up.
Because you are in LA, right?
Yes. It's I had to wake up early, and I had a coffee, so I'm. So this
sorry,
idea
I could have started with someone else.
Just in ways in which, what does agency mean, you know, and when do we let go of our power, and how we protect our certain values, and how are we able within a certain structure to become rebels, you know, and push something forward, you know. So I was always interested in that and seeing this high contrast, you know, like it's not like someone is a victim or it's the leader, and how we interact with that power. So with Zana, this was a story of a woman who was going against, because it's a story of a woman who has lost a child, and she's in a very conservative like family, and where she's supposed to be a baby making machine, you know, that's her role. She has to, and she was going through her own traumas and didn't want to do that. But what's interesting and challenging in some way, because she is a passive character to say, you know, because she's not moving the story forward. It's the family is pushing her to do that. And it's more challenging to create a character like that because she's not the hero, so to speak, you know. But then for me, she was still, this was also something that's interesting, that women still follow, somehow become rebels, you know, even if it's in a secretive way. And to me, that always has been interesting. And she is moving still, in the end up doing what she wants to do, even though, like, and also she is, and this idea of like someone who's like very peaceful, but also very aggressive. She's very, I would say, passive, but then also very active, you know, and in different, depending on circumstance and how she's still moving, you know. But what was for me interesting in creating that character, I really had to be aware of, because how is she coming out, you know, because I certainly am not writing a woman who is a victim, you know. But I feel like a lot of this pressure I had was because there's this expectation that we shouldn't, like, that now female characters just need to be all powering and triumphant and successful. And I feel like a lot of that pressure was coming from outside, because, you know, we're coming into an age now where before, let's say, we had these certain stereotypes of women being victim or being sexual objects, and now there is this pressure to have stories with women that are triumphant. But to me, it's all depending on, you know, how you see it, and it's very much a matter of interpretation. So I had to really work with that. But then I had other characters, like the mother-in-law character, who was kind of embodying that kind of strong matriarch, but who is upholding these kind of gender stereotypes, like the patriarchal structures, you know. But for me, it's about understanding the motivation and understanding why people do things they do, and just kind of really being a good observant, you know. And that comes from experience, from seeing people, from observing people around me, and not just creating one-dimensional character. In terms of how was it harder to do it in Kosovo, this story, I was lucky to get the funding. I mean, we have, I'm the first generation of female directors. It's actually a really exciting time there, because we have like the Kosovo Film Fund, you know, we have a really good director of the center, and he's like, there's a jury and they choose quality films. They're not really, he has a lot of like jury from abroad, and he makes sure to have women also on the jury. So in that sense, it wasn't like really hard, because there's a new generation that is trusting new directors and quality. And I was, but in terms of how the audience like received the film, I was definitely worried that, not worried, but I thought there was going to be some controversy because I have a female character who is actually find out she's been doing abortions, and she is married and she's going against what her role is. I thought there should be some, but there was not. And I think because they were really able to relate to her and they went into an emotional journey with her and they were able to understand, have an understanding. And so I was, that's why there wasn't like much of backlash, I think, in Kosovo. And yeah.
And how to continue on that line, and how important was to depict that context for you, not only for Kosovo but also for an international audience?
For me, that's the reality of so many women. And I was really interested to depict, because the film is multi-layered, but we're talking right now about gender roles. It was really important because that's the reality, and also ways in which we are rebels in different ways and how we push things forward, I'm not interested just someone who's just the traditional idea of a hero. And to me, she is a hero because all these women have carried and they've made small changes and they are like pushing it forward. Like my mother pushed things forward for me so I can be where I am today. My grandmother did, my aunts, and I feel like it is important to see it so we can understand, and we can also, with that in mind, we understand that these dynamics and these are not actually helping, it's the same like with a man, like her husband, like he's in the structure, but doesn't mean that that's actually beneficial for him.
Yes.
And I think it's just having a real understanding of what's happening, we can all connect to a human story, whether it's female, male, so I really try to do that with all the characters, and it is quite important. And the thing I was talking about earlier, this idea where I feel like this pressure about having certain kind of female characters now, I really see this happening like in festivals. I've been all the films directed by women. It's really exciting because it's so diverse. And you have like characters like Lume, who is more passive, but then she's it's very complex. And maybe she doesn't want sex. And then I see a film with a woman who's very sexual and it's by a female director or different type, and to me that's really exciting, and it's this diversity of voices that is really important right now. That is, I really see it happening, in festivals, we still, of course, I think you were talking about numbers, and I think we're still in a very equal society in that way, there's so many challenges, but it's my whole journey with festivals. So this is my first feature, and with women directors, meeting a lot of women, it's really actually exciting. And there's this kind of there's a real movement happening right now. And also it's very supportive. I definitely felt that when I was in Toronto and in some festivals. It's, I think, exciting. But there's a lot of work still, of course.
Yeah. Thank you, Antoneta. So maybe Andreas later can tell us a little bit what we shared in the selection for the Sydney Film Festival about the diversity of female directors' voices in Europe, which was really, really striking as a selection. So now maybe Marysia, she can share with us a little bit how she constructed her characters, in particular our dear Larissa, in her film, and whether there were issues about the funding of the film, given the way the project is structured and the way you depict the society, the context. So how was for you first of all, to structure the characters and then to get the film funded.
Hello, everybody. For me, let's say I never was thinking about particular female to create female characters. It's come from my inside because I'm a woman, and a lot of things, mostly everything I percept as a woman. But for me, the most important thing, I suppose for all of us, is very important thing is not to be divided on genders, like female or male character, but personality. And the core of the character always was personality, strong personality, and rebel personality. As Antoneta also mentioned about being rebels. Maybe I think that my film When the Trees Fall, it was also my first feature film, and I think it was some kind like a Rubicon for me, because I lived like 25 years with some struggle in my own, with small fighting with my own society as a post-Soviet society in Ukraine. Being a character of this film, I mean, the film is called My Own Personal Life, and all things I was so fed up of some things that was. From my point of view, was really that things in our society really were not working, not only for women but also for men, for personality. I'm telling this story from in When the Trees Fall. I'm telling from two voices. Let's say there is three voices, but in general, like the male character, female, and the small girl. But in general, my voice is from the small girl and the character of Larissa, teenage girl who is struggle and want to fight, to run away from, let's say, her destiny, that from the repetitive destiny that her mother and grandmother leaves. She wants something else, but she doesn't know what exactly she wants. So it was like a partly, for me, the character who strong and fight, but the character, because I wanted to be truthfully, I couldn't, in that period when I was writing that film, I didn't see a lot of hope for the personality to be free, and to fight against some rules, traditional rules that are not bad in lots of meanings, but that are not working anymore. And I felt on that time that that if my character will win and will have like be like superhero, like superwoman or some kind like this, it wouldn't work because it's not true. So in general, my character tried to find new way, but didn't find it. And that's why I needed the small girl that was more free, or the small character that was more free from social stereotypes and out of the social patterns of behavior that are common in our society in post-Soviet. I'm from Ukraine, sorry, and Ukrainian and post-Soviet society. So I created the small character that was showing by her complete being a rebel. She was showing a hope and that light that I wanted to find for myself and for my character, the teenage character. So actually, what I'm doing, and I write prose and scripts. I'm not sure. I tried to create the personalities and that have something strong. It have to be something exaggerated inside, or anger, or love, or whatever we have, or some empathy, or rebel, infantile, some kind of behavior. I'm very fond of bright parts of personality and characters that I can create, and actually I take from outside, from things that I try, how I perceive the world, and I look on my female friends, how they survive in today's time, now time. And actually from myself, what I'm taking, what struggle I have, what psycho problems, or emotional, or what kind of things are not working, or what kind of things I have the pain or pleasure, that I understand that they are in these lines. I have to dig and to find to find some new information, more information, and to create the character. Because if it's touch me and my friends, my people of my age, I believe it touches a lot of people, maybe not all, but a lot of. So, and I have to believe in things I write, and be on a side or on opposite side of the character. I have to have my own energy. As an actor, when you create, when actors create the roles, they communicate with the character in their mind. It's the same do I when I write, and then when I film, I have all these steps. And for me, it's very interesting time, because it's not like I have to do this. I write sometimes from the male part, the male characters. But to create such characters, I have to make more research to find, because psychologically inside, I can understand what is going on with this character, male character. But and I can read some psychological books to understand how to create deeper male character. But I have not enough of emotional connection. I never lived this life as a man. So I go to my friends and pick up the information from how do they feel, what do they really think on this or that question. But yes, that's how, for me, it's more easier to create female characters. It's first. Second, I think also what's interesting that as we all create mostly strong characters and heroes, so I think, yes, step by step, but even now we will have this mass in the mass culture, the image of a strong woman, yeah, that women's are quite strong, even if it is not, or if it is, I don't know. And did I have how I create the funding? You mean, did I have problems with funding, or? Oh, I don't hear you. Sorry. What?
It's about the funding.
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat? I was out of hearing.
Yes, I asked whether you had any issues in raising the funding for the film.
In Ukraine, actually, I don't think we don't have this, we don't have divideness of to female or male director or percentage, I think. We don't have it, but we naturally, I don't know why, but we have lots of female directors now, young female directors now generation. I think there are also male directors, and we are a little bit all different. We all are different, let's say, in Ukraine, in all parts, all people are different. But what I see for now for funding, and how it was in my time when I took Ukrainian film funds for my film. We took half of the budget. We won the half of the budget. It was only concerned on a story. If it's story touching, interesting, actually nobody was talking. We even didn't talk in this with a jury in this in this direction about female or male characters. So it was out of agenda, let's say, I think. So, but what I can say that there are lots of young film directors now in Ukraine, and it's happening naturally. There is no more. There is. It's not like there is more funds for female. It's not. We are all like equal here. The same in the university. Actually, the old professors, the more fields that have this stereotype of male director, and for female it's a little bit strange, but nobody is against. And but there are mostly lots of women who study now directing in universities or want to become directors, or already are in the profession. Nobody asked us for do this more. It's like came from inside. I don't know, naturally.
Okay, thank you. So I'm moving to Nana, whose films also depicting women in a particular way. I must confess that I have a preference for My Happy Family for several reasons. Also because I can identify more easily by my age with the main character, whom I really loved. But yeah, for you the same question. How did you construct your characters? What was your inspiration, and whether this has raised any issues in terms of getting support for your films? We don't hear you. Okay, maybe while the technical support is helping Nana to find a solution for her connection, we might go to Andreas, who has a lot of experience with EFP. Maybe, Andreas, first of all, tell us a little bit what you do, what your body is doing, and I would be very curious from your perspective to know whether you think that in these last years the narrative related to stereotypes is changing in Europe, and what is your point of view on what is happening on the side of gender equality in the European landscape?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Because I also was struggling I'm doing it now with my smartphone because I couldn't do it with my laptop. Yeah, European Film Promotion is a network of 36 countries from throughout Europe, and we join forces to promote European cinema and the diversity of European cinema and the talents behind it. We do projects inside Europe, we connect producers in Cannes, we introduce young upcoming actors at the Berlin Film Festival, and outside of Europe we also bring talents abroad to promote their films and their creativity. We present documentaries at the Hot Talks Film Festival in Toronto. We present talents at the Busan International Film Festival. And I worked for European film promotion for many, many years. Like I had been there in the early years. We started at a network of 10 countries. Now we are 36 countries. And I think it's a great opportunity for especially smaller countries like Kosovo, Macedonia, or Iceland, Finland to join forces and to present the diversity of cinema and also have a bigger platform at international festivals to have visibility for European cinema. In Sydney, we decided to present filmmakers in Sydney. We do working groups because it's not European film promotion deciding what we do. It's the members, the film institutes in the European countries. So we sit together several times a year and we decide what is next, what new project could we do in which territory. And we thought at the time, that was in 2015-16, that we didn't go so far to Australia. And then we decided, okay, we bring filmmakers to Australia, and then we said, yeah, let's focus on women directors. That was in 2006, the first year before the Me Too debate started. It was, of course, time for that. And when I travel there with women directors, it's always this double feeling of why do we have to sit here and discuss why we are women directors making films? Because I think there's no filmmaker making a film because you're a man or a woman. You just make a film because you have a story to tell, you want to reach out, you want to be seen, you want to have a voice. And so that is always weird, but as long as there are this imbalance between men and women making films, and all genders between men and women, by the way, there must be visibility. And what changed in the last years? I mean, I'm a very subjective voice. I mean, I'm Andreas, and I have my experience, and also
we want your subjective voice.
It's a very so Marysia's film had been in Panorama. That was a film I curated with Paz and Michi at the time, and I have some experience as a curator, as a film curator, and some experience as a like on the promotion side with European film promotion. And I don't know, there have been filmmakers, of course, for many, many years, like Emily Artev or Nanuk Leopold or Malgosia Sumovska. They did like Emily and Malgosia, for example, they did very strong films about being pregnant, like Ono, one of the first films of Malgosia, and then The Stranger in Me, Emily. It's kind of the similar starting point. That was 15 or 12 years ago. So women filmmakers always were around, but I think now finally there's a little bit more awareness that bigger festivals like international film festivals have a bit more awareness of including or give women filmmakers a bigger voice. And again, very my subjective thing is, if I curate films and I look at films and I don't know if it's a man or a woman or a trans person making the film, I always if it's a strong film, I have this feeling, oh, please, it would be so nice if that is a woman director. And then I look, oh, it's a woman director. And then I'm so happy, which means I'm still trapped in this cliche that it is still kind of an exception to have a strong film from a woman director, which is this conflict I'm also dealing with, which is kind of sad. But that's the reality, because my educational background is this overwhelming, toxic male power we live in, and we live in this world. So I think also what is interesting to see here, the three films presented by the directors here in this panel, is there's a focus on generations, like the conflict of generations. If you look at Nana's film, it's kind of, they live well together in a way, but it's not enough for Manana. She's looking for something else. And if you see Marysia, she just said, I included this little sister because she has a completely fresh view of the world, and this is, I think, I think there's a lot of change that the young generation stands up, that the women stand up for themselves, saying, this is how I think, this is how I want to live. It's completely different, or it's maybe only a slightly bit different than you lived before. But I take my room, like the scene in Nana's film where the student tells Manana, if you say no, you really have to mean it. The student who got divorced from her husband. And she's very young, and Manana listens, and whoa, wow, that's new to her. So I think there's a young generation having more courage and self-confidence to stand up for themselves and risk to be isolated, risk to be marginalized, risk to be outsiders in the family structures or community structures they live so far. Did that answer your question? I lost it a bit, but
yes,
it's a question
completely.
of like, it's still like we're in this conflict of like, okay, we want to give like women directors. Of course, it's even stupid to say like women directors are there, and I think there's more awareness. But I think they had been there before, but because like festivals want to be also maybe political correct, they are more also maybe more looking or more open, and that means that women directors have a bigger chance. But that doesn't mean they're more, because they always were around. It's just like they have a bigger chance to get funding in certain countries, even like especially in smaller countries. That is what I learned with the EFP talks. They have, like in Kosovo, you might have a bigger chance because the film community is so small, and it's easier to stand out than in bigger countries like Spain, France, or Germany. And what is also very nice, actually, like looking at Antoneta's film, that women film artists join forces. Like Antoneta worked with her sister as a director of photography. So that is also, and that she's a very demanded director of photography for other films, of course. And that is also something I find very beautiful looking at the Sydney lineup we had this year. We had this film from Finland where 7 Finnish filmmakers joined forces to tell stories about discrimination, harassment of women in completely different stories. And that comes back again to diversity, that if you create a lineup, like in Sydney, we showed 10 European films from 10 different European countries. And it's the Film Institute submitting the films, and it's Nashen and his programming team to select the films. But that ensures that the best of European cinema is submitted to the festival, because the film institutes, they have the best knowledge to know what would be the most powerful films by women directors of that year. Plus, Nashen and the curating team, like having the best knowledge what would work best for the Australian audiences. And that makes it a very diverse and very rich program of very different voices.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas. As regards the numbers, I mean, it's not the context where I want to go back to statistics, but from what we know, even the most recent studies on women directors covering in Europe, I mean in Europe, 2015, 2018. So it's really the most updated study. Done by the European Audiovisual Observatory. The numbers are still quite low because we have across Europe 22% of directors who are women. So compared to the study that we did as EWA network for the period 2008 to 2013, at the time we had 20%. So this has moved to 22, covering more countries. I mean, the most recent one is covering more countries. So still the numbers are very, very low if we look at them. But the awareness is there now, and there is really an effort to bring the talent, because actually, as I think Marysia was mentioning for Ukraine, when you go to film schools, I mean, all over the place, the graduates are 50-50 more or less everywhere. So there is a push after the end of the studies, and especially after the first feature, because the first feature seems to be somehow easy, relatively easy to make. Then when it goes to the second and the third, then things get more complicated. So, but maybe now Nana can get into the conversation. She has done her second feature. So can you speak now?
I hope you hear me now.
Yes, great.
Yes. So sorry for complications. Thank you, thank you first of all for inviting me to this panel with great colleagues, and thank you. Everything what where you were talking now were very familiar to me and very close. What you said, Antoneta and Marysia, and also Andreas. Talking about my characters, I cannot really say I don't have like a rule how should I create my female characters. More question is about why am I telling stories, and how I decided to start to work as a filmmaker or as a female director. And I come from Georgia, and I coming from writing. I started to write in my early years, and I heard a lot of compliments from my teachers or from my colleagues or from people who read my short stories, but it was a little bit strange compliments. They were telling me that when they're reading my stories, they cannot feel that I'm a woman. So,
okay.
And this feeling start in early years in my life, and it lasts somehow till now. And I somehow learned how to deal with this feedback of society or. Our films, is produced by 3 countries: Georgia, German, France, co-production, and so I cannot really say that it's completely different regarding women directors the question is creating women, female characters, starting somehow creating your own space in the society. First of all, in your family, and in a society, and to start. To see the happenings with your own eyes, because there is no question that things happens. For example, nowadays in Georgia, a lot of women are killed by ex-husband or husband. It's a statistic. It's no doubt about it. We all know it happens, but there are somehow interpretations. I wonder, but people have different opinion about that, why it happened, and so on. And when you start to see the reality with your own eyes, then it happens everything. And of course, when you decide to be a women filmmaker, everything happens somehow automatically. You choose characters close to you, your gender, women. You choose the story, what happened or could happen, and you give your characters opportunity to decide something. Maybe what they could not decide in real life. So that's why I created and my first film 2 teenage girls also close to my life and the people who I know, and my friends from that period in Georgia and Tbilisi. And also in second film, Manana is somehow mixture of the women who inspired me in my real life. My mother, my sister, my grandmother, the women I know, and all this came somehow in Manana. And interesting thing is in Georgia that first Georgian fiction film. The name of this film is Christine. It came in 1918, and from this period in Georgia, this was silent movie, and the later silent movies, and also not silent movies, sound movies. Almost, I cannot say most films are about women. Women are in lead characters, and but it's not about just to have women, just a female character. It's about perspective. It's about who is telling the story and what. And also the stories from Christine and about from other women, it's a story about there is a raped or killed or both of them, or this kind of horrible stories about their lives, their private life. And in Georgia history of cinema, it's like these stories are told from perspective of men, but I would say they did not care to tell story either from men's perspective or women's perspective. It was everything about dramatic story. Women were used in the beginning of Georgian cinema as a source of drama. Dramatic stories to impress audience, to tell impressive stories, but it was not about women. And later on, women stayed in Georgian cinema as a lead character, but it was with same stories, but it was not dramatic. It was funny. It was, for example, to kidnap a woman. It was funny story. It was how funny is it? How funny he loves her and he kidnaps her, and it's somehow funny. So it lasts this kind of change between dramatic drama and funny stories somehow till 80 or even till 90s, and with a new generation reality, maybe it did not change so much, a little bit, yes, but maybe not completely, and but we changed our perspective, and women started to tell their own stories, and this is a big step. This is a big step. And maybe I lost.
Fine.
So
how did the audience receive your films in Georgia, for instance? How your films were received by the audience?
Well, first film was quite unusual because people were not used to see this kind of women's stories on the screen, and I guess it was the first time to see a kidnapped girl on the screen with her with a perspective of a girl. And I think the audience received it quite well. And went to the cinema, so we had a cinema release in Tbilisi and in Georgia. So I was quite nobody knew me, and I directed it with my partner Simon Gross, and we were completely unknown, and the story was also like nobody wanted to go back to the 90s and to see this kind of dramatic and negative stories, as you know, but in our campaign, campaign for cinema release, we made a little bit. We showed in trailer, somehow we cut the trailer and we put a focus of friendship of the girls, and not on because we did the research and people and most people were not interested in violence in a family or in a kidnap stories because it's different topics in a cinema and in this movie, and we decided to put in the trailer, focus on the friendship of two girls, and people decided to go to the cinema. So it was we were not lying or something like that. It was just inviting to people in our stories through this kind of positive side of the story, friendship. So it worked. But I'm sure if we had a trailer like kidnapping and like 90s, people were maybe not so interested. But word of mouth worked very well, and so it was visited well. Yeah.
Okay. And was it after this first feature, so you have done My Happy Family, was it easy for you to finance your second film based on the success of the first feature? How was this second project for you?
Yeah, it's completely another story to finance our first film and second film, because second film was already, we had our French partner and we found our German main producer, and by first film it was horrible. It was we did not find German producer, and I remember after first film I met one German producer. He somehow apologized because he refused the script. Not only him, a lot of people refused the script, to work with us, and he told me honestly, I could not imagine that with the script, two girls in Georgia, teenage girls, and a woman director with her partner, and this woman with long hair. I have still long hair and big eyes, and I could not imagine what would come out. And so if we talk about problems in financing. It's not only content in your films regarding censorship, or you're showing something what people don't want to see. As a female director, you're also part of your content. You're also part of your film, and people judge you. People judge you how you're looking, how's your appearance, or are you strong enough, strong like a man, or can you lead a big team, or this kind of questions. It's almost part of the stereotypes. And why is till today that for example, women directors, they are telling their own stories. They are telling stories from their perspectives, and men directors, women directors are subjective, but men are somehow objective, or they somehow stereotype is that men can tell story about men and women and everything around the world, but women is just allowed to tell their own stories. I think nowadays, if you are talking about women in the cinema, we have now very small place, and it's and somehow we are allowed to talk about ourselves. But I want to do more. I want not just to talk about me. I want maybe to talk about the world, or maybe about the man. From my perspective, I should not know how a man feels himself, because Marysia said, and I appreciate this honesty, and it's true. I cannot feel. I cannot know how man feels, because I am not men, but I am also allowed to tell story about men, about children, about war, about I don't know, science fiction, or stars, and so that's why it's a beginning of era in women in a film somehow, but we have to do a lot to go forward.
Yeah, thank you, Nana. This maybe can bring us to the other part of the ocean and see whether things are doing better there. So, Caroline, welcome again, and please share with us some news that maybe women are in Canada doing films with bigger budgets that allow them to also tell different stories, stories that have been until now reserved to men, not because women are not able to tell those stories, but also because for all the reasons that we have said so far, they have not dared maybe to go there, knowing, sometimes censoring themselves, knowing that they would not get the budget. So what is happening in Canada, which is somehow probably the place where the 50-50 is closer?
Thank you for having me. I am the Executive Director of Women in Film and Television Vancouver, and we actually formed in 1989 to address the systemic barriers to women's equal participation in the industry. And Canada is a diverse country, and we also, as we want women to be able to tell their stories, we want the diversity of Canada's population to also tell their stories. So we want a more inclusive media, both for people behind the camera and for audiences. So that has been our goal since 1989. And after doing training programs and mentorships, we discovered that change was not happening And there really needed to be shift at the policy level. In 2013, the unions in Canada got together and formed Canadian Unions for Equity on Screen, and they did a report that showed that despite the fact that women were graduating from film schools at the same level and perhaps even making their first film, as you mentioned, and taking off when they're young, the careers of women working in the industry dropped significantly after their first film. And women were not in the workforce except in areas of hair and makeup and production office. So we wanted to look at how policy could help create the shift that we wanted to see. In 2014, a group of organizations across Canada got together and we formed some policy recommendations that we put forward to the government. And that group, that communique that we put forth has kind of become the basis or the kickoff for the policy developments that we've seen in Canada that have been successful. Research and statistics started being kept, which are very important when you're going after policy changes, is to have the statistics to back up your claims. In 2015, I think in 2014, Women in View formed and started collecting the data and doing the statistical breakdown. We found in 2015, approximately 17% of the directors were women and 22% writers. Also, around 2012, 2013, we had the Swedish Film Institute announce their 50-50 by 2020. So we, armed with the data and with the Swedish model, were able to go to the heads of our public funding agency. In Canada, there is a lot of public funding. And we were able to go to them and begin lobbying in earnest. And it has been extraordinarily, well, not extraordinarily, it has been successful. So at Women in Film also runs a film festival, the Vancouver International Women in Film Festival. And in 2016, the head of the National Film Board of Canada made an announcement that they would commit to 50-50 by 2020. And then the other major funders have followed suit. So we started to see increases. In 2019, we're up to 28% directors and 43% writers. Still very, very poor, and still today very poor when it comes to Indigenous representation and women of color. And we also noticed that as progress was being made and the percentages were going up, the budget levels were not. So yes, there were more women writers and directors, but they were still all congregated at the low budget level, and the lion's share of the funding was going to projects led by men. And we continued to advocate and make that public. And in Telefilm Canada, one of the major film funders, recently shared their numbers. And there has been an increase in women in the higher budget level. So that's been very positive change that we've seen. It's quite dramatic. I have from 19% to 42% in the last 3 years. But what's been interesting to note as we celebrate this positive change, we also note that the number of producers receiving funding is declining. The number of women producers is declining. So projects with women writers and directors are increasing, and even increasing at the higher budget levels. But the funding going to women producers is actually decreasing. And when you start to look at the production companies and their ownership structure, there is a genuine lack of women there. So I think if the narrative is to shift, like we want to, the narrative in terms of who's working and the narrative that we're seeing on screen, we're going to need to see more women ownership in terms of the production companies. And that's something that we'll tackle we're beginning to tackle at Women in Film. We also made some interventions to the regulatory body that regulates the broadcasters, and they have also made announcements 50-50 by 2025. And one area where we want to see significant change now is the tax credit. So the tax credit is a way that films are funded in Canada. It's a labor tax credit. You get money back as a producer for the labor that you hire that is Canadian or from your province. There is no requirement for that labor to be inclusive or equitable in terms of gender. So we're hoping to see actually either a requirement or an incentive so that hiring becomes more inclusive. And that's something we're working on now. And unfortunately, like all of us, we have seen major shifts because of the pandemic. And we are worried that the strides that we have made will go backwards, and have been monitoring the situation. And we've actually are collaborating with the other OIFF chapters across the country. And we've received some funding from the Canadian Media Fund to do some research into pandemic-related issues and see what kind of strategies we develop there. So things have definitely been improving. We have seen the numbers climb, but there still is a lot to do.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for sharing at least the good news, because I think that as far as I know, Canada has really seen the most dramatic shift, at least in numbers, and this is really way ahead of Europe. And I'm not even speaking of the US, but even for Europe, it is like taking time, though we have public funding, and we have also all the tools that can be implemented. I'm seeing that we have roughly 15 minutes left. And I would like to go back to something which has been said, I think by Antoneta, but which for me is very interesting, though we cannot really develop it in 15 minutes, but I'm really, really interested into this subject. So maybe if the directors could share something about that. So Antoneta, you, also Marysia, you were speaking about women characters as traditional heroes in films. And also women characters now are expected to be strong characters, but somehow in your film, Antoneta, the female character, she's a kind of anti-hero. I don't want to spoil the story for those who have not seen it. And also Marysia was suggesting that she had the small girl in her film just because she couldn't make somehow her main character as a hero in the way we are supposed to expect a hero to behave in the traditional storytelling. So I would like you to develop this a little bit more in the 15 minutes that we have left. Do you see that there is a shift in the narrative of not only your own films, but of female directors concerning this hero journey, which is being taught in all schools, I guess. The hero journey is really the pattern that we are all used to. And do you think there is a shift? Do you think there is a space really now for something different? Whether the main character is a man or a woman, I mean, because I hear what Nana has also said, that of course women can write about men. Men have been writing about women, so that's not the issue. But can we change the narrative nowadays? Can women change the narrative? Yeah, you can start, Antoneta, because I got the inspiration from you.
No, and I think it's that question with heroes, but it's a question of the structure too. And I I honestly feel like we're still stepping on eggs. We're still working on a structure that was created by men. Not that I see the world in gendered way in this way, you know, but I was struggling with my script because the climax, you know, the whole 3-act structure, and whereas for me it feels more like a spiral, and you already know, you know, and there are things we're not conscious of. To me, I don't see this like you're building up to a certain. So in that sense, I still feel like we're still learning how to use the structure, but then shifting it, you know, and with characters and with the structure of the film. And I definitely, on my other film, I want to experiment more and find out what is it, you know, we're still learning. But I wanted only just to add something to what Nana said about us being able to take on other films, that it's not about just women. You know, I've done a short with a male character lead, you know, but what I feel like it has to do also more with the way we are placed, that we're still what Toni Morrison talks about, like we're still in the center, we're in the periphery. Like they talk, the way it's talked about our films, it's women's issues, whereas if it's a male director, no one is saying he's making a film about men. It's about human condition, you know?
Yes.
And whereas for women, it's about women. I want actually our films to be considered we're not talking just about women, and we're talking about our human condition. And this is something still encountering, and it's also in the media and the way the reviews are done. And because we still live in the world where men are in the center, and we're just starting to kind of, you know, I think that it's a fundamental thing that it needs to change, you know, and I look forward to the time when that, you know, is not anymore, that we are in the center. I consider myself, when we write films and when we develop characters, I'm not really thinking, you know, oh, it's just a women's issue. It's about our human condition. But I think we're still like, you know, around it. And then it's also coming from a country like Kosovo. Then you're from another place that it's in a periphery, you know. Yes. So yeah, I've had questions like, what is it about Kosovo you want to talk about? Do you ask a male, someone from France, what about France are you talking about? What is it you're trying to say about, as if Kosovo is compact. And also it's the same, like, yeah, women, like there's so many diverse stories. There's so, like, it's not one voice, you know. And I think we're just bringing all these perspectives and voices and yeah, anyways, that was just what I wanted to add.
Yeah. Marysia, yes, please. We cannot hear you. No. Maybe Nana?
Your question was if we can change the narrative, right?
Yes. Like thinking about the hero journey. Is this something that we need to apply also to female characters? Is it changing?
I think regarding of character, it doesn't matter to have at the end to have women character or main character. It's about a story, and maybe we have a main character and it's completely completely against of rules and against of society, and because I think that if women is suffering in this male dominating society, also a lot of men are suffering, men who are not who are also against of the society, who are also against of these common rules. And if they are not part of the patriarch society.
Yes.
So they have somehow same problems because it's about are you in a minority or how you are, who are defending you, and if you can struggle by yourself. I don't know. I think it's already we already start, and it already started to change the narrative because the world around us is changing. Nobody could imagine that. Harvey Weinstein and other people and actors could go to jail for something what they were doing just like a normality a few years ago, and the world is changing, and I think it's very natural process that will affect on storytelling.
Okay, thank you. Marysia, can you speak now?
I told that I can speak now.
Yes. Yes.
You hear me? Yes. Oh, that's
yes.
good.
Yes, we can. Yes.
So my answer to this question will be, I think, quite brief. I don't think the women voices and the women filmmaking will change the narrative, because it's based, actually, if we go, we will base on. It's based on archetypes, yes. If we talk about the hero, the way of hero, path of hero, based on comparative mythology of Joseph Campbell, it's like something that comes from the structure of dramaturgy and of the capturing of the attention and psychological emotions and peaks, crises, climaxes of psychology of female or male is something that connects in not only to that's something that builds on archetype and on our physical and chemical structures inside. So all these things. And all these rules were already. So everything we have about the drama structure and the creation of characters is taken from the human being. From the depths of from the self-watching about how I live, how what kind of things I do, so and why I'm why my behavior is such or another. So this thing, I don't think that female voice will change. It's just we will complete. Because we had mostly men talking about the stories. Now we have also men and women talking about the stories. But because we worked on things that to increase, now a lot of countries and institutions work on to increase the female directors and scriptwriters and producers all over the world. That's what I think we will change, not the narrative, but maybe the myth. The myth of we will create more myths about the women, and we will have more, as I told, from my perspective, more interesting and diverse characters, and we will rebuild the female characters from the past, from the story and mythology. That's what I think. So not narrative, but myth. We will change a little bit, maybe. Yes.
Thank you. I saw Carolyn wanted to add something on the discussion.
Just in terms of the hero narrative, I have a huge echo. Is that okay?
We can hear you. There is an echo, but it's fine, I think.
Okay. I think as filmmakers, we actually have a responsibility to challenge the hero narrative. The hero narrative pits us into stereotypes. And I think as we use the hero narrative to create our stories, we need to challenge the use of stereotypes. Wonder Woman, for example, it's great to see a strong woman lead, but at the same time, it's the American soldier who saves the day. It's a narrative that needs to be challenged. And I think I didn't watch all three of your films, but I watched Rabies. That was Nana, your film, which the short film Rabies.
No, Marysia.
That was yours?
Marysia.
Okay, so I think that does, in a sense, follow the traditional hero narrative, but it also flips it slightly in that we're seeing our hero go into an internal journey and choose the morality, choose where the good and evil are going to lie. So I thought that you used the hero narrative, but also were able to break some of the stereotypes that it can pit us into. So yes, I think we can change we need to change the hero narrative, but we can do it by using it and by challenging it. So yeah.
Andreas, would you like to add anything to this final exchange?
Caroline exactly said what I wanted to contribute, because I have been thinking since Antoneta talked about the shyness of having a woman character to be the hero or the victim. And I think what is great that now that women directors or film artists question these extremes of why do we need a character being a woman, being a hero or being a victim. So I think as long as you start to question this, you deconstruct that cliche of that Hollywood-like mainstream need to have a hero guiding the audience through that story. And then it could really become very interesting. And I really fell in love with Marysia creating this new idea of creating a myth of women characters or characters in general. So I think this is a good way that with the starting point, you don't decide that it's either a victim story or a hero story, but from the very beginning, you could begin maybe with a hero story, but you question it all over and all over again. And then the audience is no longer maybe there's no longer the urge to commit to this storyline, to be guided by a hero, by a victim, but to go somewhere else, to the unknown, and to discover something new.
Yeah. And even if I think back to My Happy Family, even the end of My Happy Family, it's so open that you cannot really say that it's a hero journey. So even though, of course, we see Manana evolve in the film, but we don't know exactly where she will land. And this is what I really liked about the journey. So I like this idea of maybe we are still not able to challenge the structure because it's so ingrained and embedded in the way that storytelling has been going on for so many years. But I really believe, watching so many films also directed by women, that here and there are a lot of signs that there is a change in the narrative, whether bringing more myths about the feminine or really treating the stories differently. So this gives hope that there will be diversity also in storytelling, because that's at the end of the day, from my point of view, it's really about democracy and freedom of expression. And this is what we need men and women to access equally. I think we have run out of time, and I would like to say that that's been my big pleasure to have this conversation with all of you, and I wish everybody a lot of success, the directors and Caroline for the next films, and encouraging really to continue to pursue despite all the difficulties. And Andreas, we will, I hope, cooperate again with the EFP for the next generation of women filmmakers. And thank you so much, and thank you, the Odessa Film Festival, for giving the opportunity to deal with this subject, which is, again, for me, a subject about freedom of expression and democracy in our societies. So thank you very much, and goodbye, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.